ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaste my dear friends, this is video number 15 on Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna Parmahamsa. This video starts with chapter number 14, Instruction to Vaishnavas and Brahmos, Sunday, September 23, 1883. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting in his room at Dakshineshwar with Rakhal M and other devotees. Hajra sat on the porch outside. The master was conversing with the devotees. Master to a devotee, Narendra doesn't like even you nowadays. To M, why didn't he come to see me at Adhar's house? Eulogy of Narendra. How versatile Narendra is. He is gifted in singing, in playing on instruments, and in studies. He is independent and doesn't care about anybody. The other day he was returning to Calcutta with Captain in his carriage. Captain begged Narendra to sit beside him, but he took a seat opposite. He did not even look at Captain. What can a man achieve through mere scholarship? What is needed is prayer and spiritual discipline. Gauri of Indies was both a scholar and a devotee. He was a worshipper of the Divine Mother. Now and then he would be overpowered with spiritual fervor. When he chanted a hymn to the Mother, the Pandits would seem like earthworm beside him. I too would be overcome with ecstasy. At first he was a bigoted worshipper of Shakti. He used to pick up tulsi leaves with a couple of sticks so as not to touch them with his fingers or laugh. Then he went home. When he came back, he did not behave that way anymore. He gave remarkable interpretations of Hindu mythology. He would say that the 10 heads of Ramana represented the 10 organs. Kumbhakarna was the symbol of tamas, Ravana of rajas, and Vibhishana of sattva. That was why Vibhishana obtained favor with Rama. After the master's midday meal, while he was resting, Ram, Tarak, and some other devotees arrived from Calcutta. Nitya Gopal, Tarak, and several others were staying with Ram, a householder disciple of the master. Nitya Gopal was always in an exalted spiritual mood. Tarak's mind too was always indrawn. He seldom exchanged words with others. Ram looked after their physical needs. Rakhal now and then spent a few days at Adhar's house. Ram to the master, we have been taking lessons on the drum. Master to Ram, Nitya Gopal too. Ram, no sir, he plays a little. Master and Tarak. Ram, he knows a good deal, master. Then he won't keep his eyes on the ground so much. If the mind is much directed to something else, he does not dwell deeply on God. Ram, I have been studying the drum only to accompany the kirtan. Master to M. I hear that you two are taking singing lessons, is that so? M. No, sir, I just open my mouth now and then. Master, have you practiced that song? O mother, make me mad with thy love. If you have, please sing it. The song expresses my ideal perfectly. The conversation turned to Hajra's hatred for certain people, which Sri Ramakrishna did not like. Master to the devotees. I used frequently to visit a certain house at Kamarpukur. The boys of the family were of my age. The other day they came here and spent 2 or 3 days with me. Their mother, like Hajra, used to hate people. Then something happened to her foot and gangrene set in. On account of the foul smell, no one could enter her room. I told the incident to Hazra and asked him not to hate anyone. Master in spiritual mood. Towards evening, as Sri Ramakrishna was standing in the northwest corner of the courtyard, he went into Samadhi. In those days, the master remained almost always in an ecstatic state. He would lose consciousness of the world at the slightest suggestion from outside. But for scant conversation with visiting devotees, he remained in an indrawn mood and was unable to perform his daily worship and devotions. Coming down to the relative world, he began to talk to the Divine Mother. Still standing where he was, O Mother, he said, worship has left me and japa also. Please see, Mother, that I do not become an inert thing. Let my attitude toward God be that of the servant toward the Master. O Mother, let me talk about Thee and chant Thy holy name. I want to sing Thy glories. Give me a little strength of body that I may move about, that I may go to places where Thy devotees live and sing Thy name. In the morning, Sri Ramakrishna had been to the Kali temple to offer flowers at the mother's feet. Continuing, the master said, O mother, I offered flowers at thy feet this morning. I thought, that is good. My mind is again going back to formal worship. Then why do I like this now? Why art thou turning me into a sort of inert thing? The moon had not yet risen. It was a dark night. The master, still in an abstracted mood, sat on the small couch in his room and continued his talk with the Divine Mother. He said, why this special discipline of the Gayatri? Why this jumping from this roof to that? Who told him to do it? Perhaps he is doing it of his own accord. Well, he will practice a little of that discipline. The previous day, Sri Ramakrishna had discouraged Isan about Vedic worship, saying that it was not suitable for the Kali Yuga. He had asked Isan to worship God as the Divine Mother. The Master said to M, are these all my fancies or are they real? M remained silent with wonder at the Master's intimate relationship with the Divine Mother. He thought she must be within us as well as without. Indeed, she must be very near us, or why should the Master speak to her in a whisper? Wednesday, September 26, 1883. There were very few devotees with the Master, for most of them came on Sundays. Rakhal and Latu were living with him the greater part of the time. Anne arrived in the afternoon and found the Master seated on the small couch. The conversation turned to Narendra, Master to M. Have you seen Narendra lately? With a smile he said of me, he still goes to the Kali temple, but he will not when he truly understands. His people are very much satisfied with him because he comes here now and then. The other day he came here in a hired carriage and Surendra paid for it. Narendra's aunt almost had a row with Surendra about it. The master left the couch and went to the northeast veranda where Hazra, Kishori, Rakhal and a few other devotees were sitting. Master to M. How is it that you are here today? Have you no school? M. Our school closed today at 1:30. Master, why so early? M. Vidyasagar visited the school. He owns the school, so the boys get a half holiday whenever he comes. Efficacy of truthfulness. Master, why does not Vidyasagar keep his word? If one who holds to truth and looks on woman as his mother does not realize God, then Tulsi is a liar. If a man holds to truth, he will certainly realize God. The other day, Vidyasagar said he would come here and visit me, but he has not kept his word. Difference between scholar and holy man. There is a big difference between a scholar and a holy man. The mind of a mere scholar is fixed on woman and gold, but the sadhu's mind is on the lotus feet of Hari. A scholar says one thing and does another, but it is quite a different matter with a sadhu. The words and actions of a man who has given his mind to the lotus feet of God are altogether different. In Banaras, I saw a young sannyasi who belonged to the sect of Nanak. He was the same age as you. He used to refer to me as the loving monk. His sect has a monastery in Banaras. I was invited there one day. I found that the Mahant was like a housewife. I asked him, what is the way for the Kali Yuga? He said, the path of devotion as enjoined by Narada. He was reading a book. When the reading was over, he recited, Vishnu is in water, Vishnu is on land, Vishnu is on the mountain top. The whole world is pervaded by Vishnu. At the end he said, peace, peace, abiding peace. Path of love suited to modern times. One day he was reading the Gita. He was so strict about his monastic rules that he would not read a holy book looking at a worldly man. So he turned his face towards me and his back on Mathur, who was also present. It was this holy man who told me of Narada's path of devotion as suited to the people of the Kali Yuga. And are not sadhus of his class followers of the Vedanta? Master, yes, they are, but they also accept the path of devotion. The fact is that in the Kali Yuga, one cannot wholly follow the path laid down in the Vedas. Once a man said to me that he would perform the Purascharna of the Gayatri. I said, why don't you do that according to the Tantra? In the Kali Yuga, the discipline of Tantra is very efficacious. It is extremely difficult to perform the rites enjoined in the Vedas. Further, at the present time, people lead the life of slaves. It is said that those who serve others for 12 years or so become slaves. They acquire the traits of those they serve. While serving their masters, they acquire the rajas, the tamas, the spirit of violence, the love of luxury, and other traits of their masters. Not only do they serve their masters, but they also enjoy a pension after their term of service is over. Description of various monks. Once a Vedantic monk came here. He used to dance at the sight of a cloud. He would go into an ecstasy of joy over a rainstorm. He would get very angry if anyone went near him when he meditated. One day I came to him while he was meditating, and that made him very cross. He discriminated constantly. Brahmin, Brahma alone is real and the world is illusory. Since the appearance of diversity is due to Maya, he walked about with a prism from a chandelier in his hand. One sees different colors through the prism. In reality, there is no such thing as color. Likewise, nothing exists in reality except Brahma. But there is an appearance of the manifold because of Maya egoism. He would not look at an object more than once, lest he should be deluded by Maya and attachment. He would discriminate while taking his bath at the sight of birds flying in the sky. He knew grammar. He stayed here for 3 days. One day he heard the sound of a flute near the embankment and said that a man who had realized Dharma would go into Samadhi at such a sound. While talking about the monk, the master showed his devotees the manners and movements of a Paramahamsa, the gait of a child, face beaming with laughter, eyes swimming in joy, and body completely naked. Then he again took a seat on the small couch and poured out his soul enthralling words. Master to M. I learnt Vedanta from Nangata. Dharma alone is real. The world is illusory. The magician performs his magic. He produces a mango tree which even bears mangoes. But this is all sleight of hand. The magician alone is real. And it seems that the whole of life is a long sleep. This much I understand, that we are not seeing things rightly. We perceive the world with a mind by which we cannot comprehend even the nature of the sky. So, how can our perceptions be correct? Master, there is another way of looking at it. We do not see the sky rightly. It looks as if the sky were touching the ground at the horizon. How can a man see correctly? His mind is delirious, like the mind of a typhoid patient. The master sang in his sweet voice, what a delirious fever is this that I suffer from. O mother, thy grace is my only cure. Continuing, the master said, truly it is a state of delirium. Just see how worldly men quarrel among themselves. No one knows what they quarrel about. Oh, how they quarrel. May such and such a thing befall you. How much shouting, how much abuse. And I said to Kishori, the box is empty, there is nothing inside, but two men pull at it from either side, thinking the box contains money. Well, the body alone is the cause of all this mischief, is not it? The Gyanis see all this and say to themselves, what a relief one feels when this pillowcase of the body drops off. The master and Anne went towards the Kali temple. Master, why should you say such things? This world may be a framework of illusion, but it is also said that it is a mansion of mirth. Let the body remain. One can also turn this world into a mansion of mirth. And but where is unbroken bliss in this world? Master, yes, Where is it? Sri Ramakrishna stood in front of the shrine of Kali and prostrated himself before the Divine Mother and followed him. Then the Master sat on the lower floor in front of the shrine room, facing the blissful image and leaned against a pillar of the Nata Mandir. He wore a red bordered cloth, part of which was on his shoulder and back and sat by his side. And since there is no unbroken happiness in the world, why should one assume a body at all? I know that the body is meant only to reap the results of past action, but who knows what sort of action it is performing now? The unfortunate part is that we are being crushed. Master, if a pea falls into filth, it grows into a pea plant nonetheless. And but still there are the eight bonds. Divine grace removes bondage. Master, they are not eight bonds but eight fetters. But what if they are? These fetters fall off in a moment by the grace of God. Do you know what is it? It is like, suppose a room has been kept dark 1,000 years. The moment a man brings a light into it, the darkness vanishes, not little by little. Have not you seen the magician's feet? He takes a string with many knots and ties one end to something, keeping the other in his hand. Then he shakes the string once or twice, and immediately all the knots come undone. But another man cannot untie the knots, however he may try. All the knots of all the knots of ignorance come undone in the twinkling of an eye through the Guru's grace. Well, can you tell me why Keshav Sen has changed so much lately? He used to come here very often. He learned here how to bow low before a holy man. One day I told him that one should not salute a holy man as he had been doing. Hari says rightly, all the checks must be approved here. Only then will they be cashed in the bank. Laughter. And listened to these words breathlessly. He began to realize that Satchitananda in the form of the Guru passes the check. Master, do not reason. Who can ever know God? I have heard it from Nangata once for all that this whole universe is only a fragment of Brahma. Hajra is given too much calculation. He says this much of God has become the universe and this much is the balance. My head itches at his calculations. I know that I know nothing. Sometimes I think of God as good and sometimes as bad. What can I know of him? And it is true, sir. Can anyone ever know God? Each thinks with his little bit of intelligence that he has understood all of God. As you say, an ant went to a sugar hill and finding that one grain of sugar filled its stomach, thought that the next time it would take the entire hill into its hole. Surrender to the Divine Mother. Master, who can ever know God? I don't even try. I only call on Him as Mother. Let Mother do whatever she likes. I shall know her if it is her will, but I shall be happy to remain ignorant if she wills otherwise. My nature is that of a kitten. It only cries mew mew. The rest it leaves to its mother. The mother cat puts the kitten sometimes in the kitchen and sometimes on the master's bed. The young child wants only his mother. He doesn't know how wealthy his mother is, and he doesn't even want to know. He knows only, I have a mother Why should I worry? Even the child of the maid servant knows that he has a mother. If he quarrels with the son of the master, he says, I shall tell my mother, I have a mother. My attitude too is that of a child. Suddenly, Sri Ramakrishna caught M's attention and said, touching his own chest, well, there must be something here. Is not that so? And looked wonderingly at the master. He said to himself, does the mother herself dwell in the master's heart? Is it the Divine Mother who has assumed this human body for the welfare of humanity? Sri Ramakrishna was praying to the Divine Mother. O Mother, O embodiment of Om. Mother, how many things people say about thee, but I don't understand any of them. I don't know anything. Mother, I have taken refuge at thy feet. I have sought protection in thee. O Mother, I pray only that I may have pure love for thy lotus feet, love that seeks no return. And Mother, do not delude me with thy world bewitching Maya. I seek thy protection. I have taken refuge in thee. The evening worship in the temples was over. Sri Ramakrishna was again seated in his room with Anne. M had been visiting the master for the past 2 years and had received his grace and blessings. He had been told that God was both with form and without form, that he assumed forms for the sake of his devotees. To the worshipper of the formless God, the Master said, hold to your conviction, but remember that all is possible with God. He has form and again he is formless. He can be many things more. Master to M. You have accepted an ideal that of God without form, is not that so? And yes, sir, but I also believe what you say that all is possible with God. It is quite possible for God to have formed Master Good. Remember further that as consciousness, He pervades the entire universe of the living and non living. And I think of Him as the consciousness in conscious beings. Master, stick to that ideal now. There is no need of tearing down and changing one's attitude. You will gradually come to realize that the consciousness in conscious beings is the consciousness of God. He alone is consciousness. Let me ask you one thing. Do you feel attracted to money and treasures? No, sir, but I think of earning money in order to be free from anxiety, to be able to think of God without worry. Master, oh, that's perfectly natural. And is it greed? I don't think so. Master, you are right. Otherwise, who will look after your children? What will become of them if you feel that you are not the doer? And I have heard that one cannot attain knowledge as long as one has the consciousness of duty. Duty is like the scorching sun. Master, keep your present attitude. It will be different when the consciousness of duty drops away of itself. They remained silent a few minutes. And to enter the world after attaining partial knowledge. Why? It is like dying in full consciousness as in cholera. Master, oh Ram, Ram. The idea in M's mind was that just as a cholera patient feels excruci- excruciating pain at the time of death because of retaining consciousness, so also a jnani with partial knowledge must feel extremely miserable, leading the life of the world which he knows to be illusory. And people who are completely ignorant are like typhoid patients who remain unconscious at the time of death and so do not feel the pain. Master, tell me, what does one attain through money? Jayagopal Sen is such a wealthy man, but he complains that his children don't obey him. And is poverty the only painful thing in the world? There are the six passions beside, then disease and grief. Master, and also name and fame, the desire to win people's recognition. Well, what do you think my attitude is? And it is like that of a man just awakened from sleep. He becomes aware of himself. You are always united with God. Master, do you ever dream of me? M. Yes, sir, many times. Master, how? Did you dream of me as giving you instruction? M. Remained silent, Master. If you ever see me instructing you, then know that it is Satchitananda himself that does so. And related his dream experiences to Sri Ramakrishna, who listened to them attentively. Master to him. That's very good. Don't reason any more. You are a follower of Shakti. Wednesday, October 10, 1883. Visit to Adhar's house. Adhar had invited the master to come to his house on the occasion of the Durga Puja festival. It was the third day of the worship of the Divine Mother. When Sri Ramakrishna arrived at Adhar's house, he found Adhar's friend Sharda, Balram's father, and Adhar's neighbors and relatives waiting for him. The master went into the worship hall to see the evening worship. When it was over, he remained standing there in an abstracted mood and sang in praise of the Divine Mother. Glories of the Divine Mother, out of my deep affliction rescue me, O Redeemer. Terrified by the threats of the King of Death am I. Left to myself, I shall perish soon. Save me, oh, save me now, I pray. Mother of all the worlds, thou the sport of mankind, thou the bewitcher of all, the mother of all that has life. Vrindavan's charming Radha art thou, dearest playmate of Birja's beloved. Blissful comrade of Krishna, wellsprings of Krishna's Leela, child of Himalaya, best of the gopis, beloved of Govinda, sacred Ganga, giver of moksha, Shakti, the universe sings thy praise. Thou art the spouse of Shiva, the ever blessed, the all. Sometimes thou takest form and sometimes art absolute. Eternal beloved of Mahadeva, who can fathom thine infinite glories? The master went to the Adhar's drawing room on the second floor and took a seat surrounded by the guests. Still in a mood of divine fervor, he said, Gentlemen, I have eaten. Now go and enjoy the feast. Was the master hinting that the Divine Mother had partaken of Adhar's offering? Did he identify himself with the Divine Mother and therefore say, I have eaten? Then, addressing the Divine Mother, he continued, Shall I eat, O Mother, or will you eat? O Mother, the very embodiment of the wine of divine bliss. Did the Master look on himself as one with the Divine Mother? Had the Mother incarnated herself as the Son to instruct mankind in the ways of God? Was this why the Master said, I have eaten? In that state of divine ecstasy, Sri Ramakrishna saw the six centers in his body and the Divine Mother dwelling in them. He sang a song to that effect. Again he sang, "My mind is overwhelmed with wonder, pondering the Mother's mystery. Her very name removes the fear of Kala, death himself. Beneath her feet lies Mahakala. Why should her hue be Kala black? Many the forms of black, but she appears astoundingly black. When contemplated in the heart, she lights the lotus that blossoms there. Her form is black and she is named Kali, the Black One. Blacker than black is she. Beholding her man is a bewitched for evermore. No other form can he enjoy. In wonderment asks Ramprasad, where dwells this woman so amazing? At her mere name, his mind becomes at once absorbed in her, though he has never yet beheld her. The fear of the devotees flies away if they but seek shelter at the feet of the Divine Mother. Was that why the Master sang the following song? I have surrendered my soul at the fearless feet of the Mother. Am I afraid of death any more? Unto the turf of hair on my head is tied the almighty mantra, Mother Kali's name. My body I have sold in the marketplace of the world, and with it have brought Sri Durga's name. Deep within my heart I have planted the name of Kali, the wish fulfilling tree of heaven. When Yama, king of death, appears to him, I shall open my heart and show it growing there. I have cast out from me my six unflagging foes. Ready I am to sail life's sea, crying to Durga victory. Sarda was stricken with grief on account of his son's death. So Adhar had taken him to Dakshineswar to visit the master. Sarda was a devotee of Sri Chaitanya. Sri Ramakrishna looked at him and was inspired with the ideal of Gauranga. He sang, why has my body turned so golden? Is it not time for this to be? Many the ages that must pass before as Gauranga I appear. Here in the age of Dvapara, my sport is not yet at an end. How strange this transformation is. The peacock glistens all of gold, arid golden to the cuckoo gleams. Everything around me here has turned to gold, not else appear but gold, whichever way I look. What can it mean, this miracle, that everything I see is gold? Ah, I can guess its meaning now. Radha has come to Mathura, and that is why my skin is gold, for she is like the Brahmra and so has given me her hue. Dark blue my body was but now, yet in the twinkling of an eye, it turned to gold. Have I become Radha by contemplating her? I cannot imagine where I am in Mathura or Navadipa, but how could this have come to pass? Not yet is Balrama born as Nitai, nor has Narada become Srivas, nor Yasoda as mother Sachi yet returned. Then why should I among them all alone assume a golden face? Not yet is Father Nanda born as Jagannath. Then why should I be thus transmuted into gold? Perhaps because in Mathura sweet Radha has appeared, my skin has borrowed Gauranga's golden hue. Sri Ramakrishna sang again, still overpowered with the ideal of Gauranga. Surely Gauranga is lost in a state of blissful ecstasy. In an exuberance of joy, he laughs and weeps and dances and sings. He takes a wood for Vrindavan, the Ganges for the blue Jamuna. Loudly he sobs and weeps, yet though he is all gold without, he is all black within, black with the blackness of Krishna. The master continued to sing, assuming the attitude of a woman devotee infatuated with love for Gauranga. Why do my neighbors raise such a scandal? Why do they cast aspersions upon me simply because of Gauranga? How can they understand my feelings? How can I ever explain? Can I ever explain at all? Alas, to whom shall I explain it? Ah, but they make me die of shame. Once on a time, at the house of Srivas, Gora was loudly singing the Kirtan when, on the ground of the courtyard falling, he rolled in an ecstasy. I, who was standing near him, seeing him where he lay entranced, was suddenly lost to outward sense until the wife of Srivas revived me. Another day in the Bhakta's procession, Gora was sweetly singing the Kirtan, clasping the outcast to him. He softened the unbelievers' hearts, though Nadia's marketplace through Nadia's marketplace, he chanted Lord Hari's holy name. I followed the throng and from close by caught a glimpse of his golden feet. Once by the Ganges bank he stood, his body bright as the sun and moon, charming all with his beauty. I too had come to fetch some water, and as I looked from one side, my water jar slipped and fell to the ground. My sister-in-law, the gossip, saw me, and now she is spreading it everywhere. Balram's father was a Vaishnava, hence the master also sang of the divine love of the gopis for their beloved Krishna. I have not found my Krishna, O friend. How cheerless my home without him. Ah, if Krishna could only be the hair upon my head, carefully I should braid it, then and deck it with bakul flowers. Carefully I should fashion the braids out of my Krishna hair. Krishna is black and black is my hair. Black would be one with black. Ah, if Krishna could only be the ring I wear in my nose, always from my nose he would hang and my two lips could touch him. But it can never be, alas. Why should I idly dream? Why should Krishna care at all to be the ring in my nose? Ah, if Krishna could only be the bracelets on my arms, always he would cling to my wrist and proudly I should walk, shaking my bracelets to make them sound, shaking my arms to show them. Down the King's Highway I should walk, wearing my Krishna bracelets. Balram's father was a wealthy man with estates in different parts of Orissa. An orthodox member of the Vaishnava sect, he had built temples and arranged for distribution of food to the pilgrims at various holy places. He had been spending the last years of his life in Vrindavan. The Vaishnavas, for the most part, are bigoted in their religious views. Some of them harbor malicious feelings towards the followers of the Tantra and Vedanta. But Sri Ramakrishna never encouraged such a narrow outlook. According to his teachings, through earnestness and yearning, all lovers of God will ultimately reach the same goal. The master began the conversation in order to broaden the religious views of Balram's father. Master's Harmony of Religions, Master to M. Once I thought, why should I be one-sided? Therefore I was initiated into Vaishnavism in Vrindavan and took the garb of a Vaishnava monk. I spent 3 days practicing the Vaishnava discipline. Again at Dakshineshwar I was initiated into the mystery of Rama worship. I painted my forehead with a long mark and put on a string with a diamond round my neck. But after a few days I gave them up. A certain man had a tub. People would come to him to have their clothes dyed. The tub contained a solution of dye. Whatever color a man wanted for his clothes, he would get by dipping the cloth in the tub. One man was amazed to see this and said to the dyer, please give me the dye you have in your tub. Was the master hinting that people professing different religions would come to him and have their spiritual consciousness awakened according to their own ideals? Master to Balram's father, don't read books anymore, but you may read books on devotion, such as the Life of Chaitanya. The whole thing is to love God and taste His sweetness. He is sweetness and the devotee is its enjoyer. The devotee drinks the sweet bliss of God. Further, God is the lotus and the devotee the bee. The devotee sips the honey of the lotus. As a devotee cannot live without God, so also God cannot live without his devotee. Then the devotee becomes the sweetness and God its enjoyer. The devotee becomes the lotus and God the bee. It is the Godhead that has become these two in order to enjoy its own bliss. That is the significance of the episode of Radha and Krishna. At the beginning of spiritual life, the devotee should observe such rites as pilgrimage, putting a string of beads around his neck, and so forth. But outward ceremonies gradually drop off as he attains the goal, the vision of God. Then his only activity is the repetition of God's name and contemplation and meditation on Him. The pennies equivalent to 16 rupees makes a great heap, but 16 silver coins do not look like such a big amount. Again, the quantity becomes much smaller when you change the 16 rupees into one gold mohor. And if you change the gold into a tiny piece of diamond, people hardly notice it. Orthodox Vaishnavas insist on the outer insignia of religion. They criticize any devotee who does not wear these marks. Was that why the Master said that after the vision of God, a devotee becomes indifferent to outer marks, giving up formal worship when the goal of spiritual life is attained? Master to Balram's father, the Karta Bhajas group, the devotees into four classes: the Parvartaka, the Sadhaka, the Siddha, and the Siddha of the Siddha. The Parvartaka, the beginner, puts the mark of his religion on his forehead, wears a string of beads around his neck, and observes other outer conventions. The sadhaka, the struggling devotee, does not care so much for elaborate rites. An example of this class is the Babul. The Siddha, the perfect, firmly believes that God exists. The Siddha of the Siddha, the supremely perfect, like Chaitanya, not only has realized God but also has become intimate with Him and talks with Him all the time. This is the last limit of realization. Different classes of spiritual aspirants. There are many kinds of spiritual aspirants. Those endowed with sattva perform their spiritual practices secretly. They look like ordinary people, but they meditate in inside the mosquito net. Aspirants endowed with rajas exhibit outward pomp, a string of beads around the neck, a mark on the forehead, an ochre robe, a silk cloth, a rosary with a gold bead, and so on. They are like stall keepers advertising their wares with signboards. All religions and all paths call upon their followers to pray to one and the same God. Therefore, one should not show disrespect to any religion or religious opinion. It is God alone who is called Satyachit Ananda Brahma in the Vedas, Satyachit Ananda Krishna in the Puranas, and Satyachit Ananda Shiva in the Tantras. It is one and the same Satyachit Ananda. There are different sects of Vaishnavas. That which is called Brahma in the Vedas is called Alekh Niranjan by one Vaishnava sect. Alekh means that which cannot be pointed out or perceived by the sense organs. According to this sect, Radha and Krishna are only two bubbles of the Alekh. According to the Vedanta, there is no incarnation of God. The Vedanta say that Rama and Krishna are but two waves in the ocean of Satchitananda. In reality, there are not two, there is only one. A man may call on God by any name. If he is sincere in his prayer, he will certainly reach him. He will succeed if he has longing. As Sri Ramakrishna spoke these words to the devotees, he was overwhelmed with divine fervor. Coming down to partial consciousness of the world, he said to Balram's father, "Are you the father of Balram?" All sat in silence. Balram's aged father was silently telling his beads. Futility of worship without yearning. Master to M and the others. Well, these people practice so much japa and go to so many sacred places. But why are they like this? Why do they make no progress? In their case, it seems as if the year consists of 18 months. Once I said to Harish, what is the use of going to Banaras if one does not feel restless for God? And if one feels that longing, then this very place is Banaras. They make so many pilgrimages and repeat the name of God so much, but why do they not realize anything? It is because they have no longing for God. God reveals Himself to the devotee of only if only he calls upon Him with a longing heart. At the beginning of a yatra performance, much light-hearted restlessness is to be observed on the stage. At the time one does not see Krishna. Next the sage Narada enters with his flute and sings longingly, O Govinda, O my life, O my soul. Then Krishna can no longer remain away and appears with the cowherd boys. Tuesday, October 16, 1883. Sri Ramakrishna was in his room with Rakhal, Balram's father, Beni Pal, M. Mani Malik, Ishan, Kishori, and other devotees. Master, liberal minded devotees accept all the forms of God, Krishna, Kali, Shiva, Rama, and so on. Balram's father, yes, sir, it is like a woman's recognizing her husband, whatever clothes he wears. Unwavering devotion to God. Master, but again there is a thing called Nishtha, single minded devotion. When the gopis went to Mathura, they saw Krishna with a turban on his head. At this they pulled down their veils and said, Who is this man? Where is our Krishna with the peacock feather on his crest and the yellow cloth on his body? Hanuman also had that unswerving devotion. He came to Dwarka in the cycle of Dwapara. Krishna said to Rukmani, his queen, Hanuman will not be satisfied unless he sees the form of Rama. So to please Hanuman, Krishna assumed the form of Rama. But, my dear sir, I am in a peculiar state of mind. My mind constantly descends from the absolute to the relative and again ascends from the relative to the absolute. The attainment of the absolute is called knowledge of Dharma, but it is extremely difficult to acquire. A man cannot acquire the knowledge of Dharma unless he completely rids himself of his attachment to the world. When the Divine Mother was born as the daughter of King Himalaya, she showed her various forms to her father. The king said, I want to see Dharma. Thereupon the Divine Mother said, Father, if that is your desire, then you must seek the company of holy men. You must go into solitude, away from the world, and now and then live in holy company. The many and the one. The manifold has come from the one alone, the relative from the absolute. There is a state of consciousness where the many disappears and the one as well, for the many must exist as long as the one exists. Dharma is without comparison. It is impossible to explain Dharma by analogy. It is between light and darkness. It is light, but not the light that we perceive, not material light. Again, when God changes the state of mind, when we brings my mind down to the plane of the relative, I perceive that it is He who has become all these, the Creator, Maya, the living beings and the universe. Again, sometimes He shows me that He has created the universe and all living beings. He is the master and the universe His garden. Knowledge and ignorance. He is the master and the universe and all its living beings belong to Him. That is knowledge. And I am the doer. I am the Guru. I am the Father. That is ignorance. That is my house. This is my family. This is my wealth. These are my relatives. This also is ignorance. Balram's father, that is true, sir. Master, as long as you do not feel that God is the master, you must come back to the world. You must be born again and again. There will be no rebirth when you can truly say, O God, Thou art the Master. As long as you cannot say, O Lord, Thou alone art real, you will not be released from the life of the world. This going and coming, this rebirth is inevitable. There will be no liberation further. What can you achieve by saying it is mine? The manager of an estate may say, This is our garden. These are our couches and furniture. But when he is dismissed by the master, he has not the right to take away even a chest of worthless mango wood given to him for his use. The feeling of I and mine has covered the reality. Because of this, we do not see truth. Attainment of Chaitanya, divine consciousness, is not possible without the knowledge of Advaita, non-duality. After realizing Chaitanya, one enjoys Nityananda, eternal bliss. One enjoys this bliss after attaining the state of a Paramahamsa. Vedanta does not recognize the incarnation of God. According to it, Chaitanya Deva is only a bubble of the non-dual Brahma. Do you know what the vision of divine consciousness is like? It is like the sudden illumination of a dark room when a match is struck. The incarnation of God is accepted by those who follow the path of bhakti. A woman belonging to the Karta Bhaja sect observed my condition and remarked, You have inner realization. Don't dance and sing too much. Ripe grapes must be preserved carefully in cotton. The mother-in-law lessons her daughter-in-law's activities when the daughter-in-law is with the child. One characteristic of God realization is that the activities of a man with such realization gradually drops away. Inside this man, meaning Sri Ramakrishna, is the real jewel. Watching me eat, she remarked, Sir, are you yourself eating or are you feeding someone else? The feeling of ego has covered the truth. Narendra once said, As the eye of man recedes, the eye of God approaches. Kedar says the more clay there is in the jar, the less water it holds. Krishna said to Arjuna, Brother, you will not realize me if you possess even one of the eight siddhis. These give only a little power. With healing and the like, one may do only a little good to others. Is not that true? Therefore I prayed to the Divine Mother for pure love only, a love that does not seek any return. I never asked for occult powers. While talking thus, Sri Ramakrishna went into Samadhi. He sat there motionless, completely forgetful of the outer world. Then coming down to the sense world, he sang, Ah, friend, I have not found him yet whose love has driven me mad. At the master's request, Ramlal sang a song describing how Chaitanya embraced the monastic life. Oh, what a vision I have beheld in case of Bharti's hut. Gora in all his matchless grace, shedding tears in a thousand streams, like a mad elephant, he dances in ecstasy and sings, drunk with an overwhelming love. Rolling flat upon the ground and swimming in his tears, he weeps and shouts Lord Hari's name, piercing the very heavens with his cries, loud as a lion's roar. Then most humbly he begs man's love to feel himself the servant of God. Shorn of his locks, he has put on the yogi's ochre robe. Even the hardest heart must melt to see his pure and heavenly love smitten by man's deep woe. He has abandoned everything and pours out love unstinted stintingly. Oh, would that Premdas were his slave, and passing from door to door might sing Gauranga's endless praise. The master asked Mani Malik to quote the words of Tulsidas to the effect that one who had developed love of God could not observe caste distinctions. Mani. The throat of the Chatak bird is pierced with thirst. All around are the waters of the Ganges, the Jamuna, the Sarju, and of innumerable other rivers and lakes. But the bird will not touch any of these. It only looks up expectantly for the rain that falls when the star Swati is in the ascendant. Master, that means that love for the lotus feet of God is alone real and all else illusory. Money. Tulsi also said at the touch of the philosopher's stone, the eight metals become gold. Likewise, all caste, even the butcher and the untouchable, become pure by repeating Hari's name. Without Hari's name, the people of the four castes are but butchers. Master, the hide that the scripture forbid one to touch can be taken inside the temple after it has been tanned. Chanting God's holy name. Man becomes pure by repeating the name of God. Therefore, one should practice the chanting of God's name. I said to Jaddu Malik's mother, in the hour of death you will think only of worldly things of family, children executing the will, and so forth. The thought of God will not come to your mind. The way to remember God in the hour of death is to practice now the repetition of His name and the chanting of His glories. If one keeps up this practice, then in the hour of death one will repeat the name of God. When the cat pounces upon the bird only squawks and does not say Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna. It is good to prepare for death. One should constantly think of God and chant His name in solitude during the last years of one's life. If the elephant is put in the stable after its bath, it is not soiled again by dirt and dust. Balram's father, Mani, Malik, and Beni Pal were all elderly men. Did the master give this instruction especially for their benefit, master? Why do I ask you to think of God and chant His name in solitude? Living in the world day and night, one suffers from worries. Have not you noticed brother killing brother for a foot of land? The Sikhs said to me, the cause of all worry and confusion is these three: land, woman, and money. You are leading a householder's life. Why should you be afraid of the world? When Rama said to Dasaratha that he was going to renounce the world, it worried his father, and the king sought counsel of Vasishtha. Vasishtha said to Rama, Rama, why should you give up the world? Reason with me. In this world outside God, is this world outside God? What is there to renounce and what is there to accept? Nothing whatsoever exists but God. It is Brahma alone that appears as Ishvara, Maya, living beings, and the universe. Balram's father, it is very difficult, sir. Master, the aspirant, while practicing spiritual discipline, looks upon the world as a framework of illusion. Again, after the attainment of knowledge, the vision of God, this very world becomes to him a mansion of mirth. It is written in the books of the Vaishnavas, God can be attained through faith alone. Reasoning pushes him far away, faith alone. What faith Krishna Kishore had. At Vrindavan, a low caste man drew water from him from a well. Krishna Kishore said to him, repeat the name of Shiva. After the man had repeated the name of Shiva, Krishna Kishore unhesitatingly drank the water. He used to say, if a man chants the name of God, does he need to spend money any more for the atonement of his sins? How foolish! He was amazed to see people worshipping God with the sacred tulsi leaf in order to get rid of their illness. At the bathing ghat, here he said to us, please bless me that I may pass my days repeating Rama's holy name. Whenever I went to his house, he would dance with joy at the sight of me. Rama said to Lakshmana, brother, whenever you find people singing and dancing in the ecstasy of divine love, know for certain that I am there. Chaitanya is an example of such a ecstatic love. He laughed and wept and danced and sang in divine ecstasy. He was an incarnation. God incarnated himself through Chaitanya. Sri Ramakrishna sang a song describing the divine love of Chaitanya. Then Balram's father Mani Malik, Bani Paul and several other devotees took leave of the master. In the evening, devotees from Kansari Tola, Calcutta arrived. The master danced and sang with them in a state of divine fervor. After dancing, he went into a spiritual mood and said, I shall go part of the way myself. Kishori came forward to massage his feet, but the master did not allow anyone to touch him. Ishan arrived. The master was seated still in a spiritual mood. After a while he became engaged in talk with Ishan. It was Ishan's desire to practice the Purascharna of the Gayatri. Master to Ishan, follow your own intuition. I hope there is no more doubt in your mind. Is there any? The path of the Vedas is not meant for the Kali Yuga. The path of Tantra is efficacious. Ishan, I have almost resolved to perform an atonement ceremony. Master, do you mean to say that one cannot follow the path of Tantra? That which is Dharma is also Shakti, Kali. Knowing the secret that Kali is one with the highest Dharma, I have discarded once for all both righteousness and sin. Ishan, it is mentioned in Hyman in the Chandi that Brahma alone is the primal energy. Brahma is identical with Shakti. Master, it will not do simply to express the idea in words. Only when you assimilate it will all be well with you. When the heart becomes pure through the practice of spiritual discipline, when one rightly feels that God alone is the door, He alone has become mind, life and intelligence. We are only His instruments. Thou it is that holdest the elephant in the mire, thou that helpest the lame man scale the loftiest hill. When your heart becomes pure, then you will realize that it is God who makes us perform such rites as the Purascharna. Thou workest thine own work, man only call it theirs. All doubts disappear after the realization of God. Then the devotee meets the favorable wind. He becomes free from worry. He is like the boatman who, when the favorable wind blows, unfurls the sail, holds the rudder lightly, and enjoys a smoke. Ishan took his leave and Sri Ramakrishna talked with M. No one else was present. He asked M what he thought of Narendra, Rakhal, Adhar and Hazra and whether they were childless and asked the master, "What do you think of me?" M said, "You are simple and at the same time deep. It is extremely difficult to understand you." Sri Ramakrishna laughed. November 26, 1883. It was the day of the annual festival of the Sinduripati Brahmahamsa. The ceremony was to be performed in Manilal Malik's house. The worship hall was beautifully decorated with flowers, wreaths, and evergreens, and many devotees were assembled, eagerly awaiting the worship. Their enthusiasm had been greatly heightened by the news that Sri Ramakrishna was going to grace the occasion with his presence. Keshav, Vijay, Shivnath, and other leaders of the Brahmo Samaj held him in high respect. His God intoxicated state of mind, his intense love of spiritual life, his burning faith, his intimate communion with God, and his respect for women, whom he regarded as veritable manifestations of the Divine Mother, together with the unsullied purity of his character, his complete renunciation of worldly talk, his love and respect for all religious faiths, and his eagerness to meet devotees of all creeds attracted the members of the Brahmo Samaj to him. Devotees came that day from far off places to join the festival, for it would give them a chance to give a glimpse of the Master and listen to his inspiring talk. Sri Ramakrishna arrived at the house before the worship began and became engaged in conversation with Vijay Krishna Goswami and the other devotees. The lamps were lighted and the divine service was about to begin. The master asked if Shivnath would come to the festival. A Brahmo devotee said that he had other important things to do and was not coming. At this point, I conclude this video. Next video number 16 will start with truthfulness leads to God. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, comment and share the video and subscribe the channel. Namaskar my dear friends. Thank you. Namaste.